Well, good afternoon to all of our attendees. I want to welcome you to Cotton Grower Magazine's webinar on how to keep bale wrap out of your bales and add value to your cotton. I'm Jim Stedman. I'm editor of Cotton Grower, and I'll be moderating today's session, which comes to you through the kind support of TAMA, providing better cotton wrap solutions for a greater American cotton. Now, as cotton harvest is beginning in earnest across the majority of the cotton belt, this is a topic we think that should be on the minds of growers as you're heading to the fields. It's also an important topic considering the issues regarding contamination that the U.S. cotton industry has been struggling with for several years. What we'll be sharing today is a review of some of the research behind the development and evolution of standards for cotton module wraps to help better protect the cotton in the fields, in the gin yard, and through the ginning process, and how those standards are now being enforced through product testing and evaluation. Joining us today to provide the research background and the latest on module wrap evaluation and endorsement are John Wanjura, who's a research agricultural engineer with USDA ARS Cotton Production and Processing Research Unit in Lubbock, Texas, and Lauren Krogman, who's manager for marketing and processing technology at the National Cotton Council in Cordova, Tennessee. Both of them have been very actively involved in these studies over the past few years, and they can certainly tell this story much, much better than I can. But before we begin, just a couple quick items. If you have questions for our speakers, you can submit those by clicking on the Q&A tab that's visible at the bottom of your screen, and we'll follow up on those questions after both presentations are complete. Also, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available online soon at cottongrower.com for follow-up review or just to go back and listen again to see if there's anything that you missed. So with that, let's get started. First up to discuss background studies on module wraps is John Wanjura.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Jim mentioned my name is John Wanjura, and I'm with the USDA Gin Lab here at Lubbock. I wanted to visit with you a little bit this afternoon about the development of this ASABE, American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers, standard that's been put together for cotton module cover material performance. So a little background about the development of this standard and where we came from. So TAMA, up until a few years ago, was basically the single provider of wrap material on the market. And they had a couple of patents that protected the intellectual property associated with the manufacture and the use of that wrap that they were producing. The two products that they have currently on the market today are the TAMA Wrap Premium, which is the yellow and the pink wrap that you're probably familiar with. And they also have the TAMA Value Wrap, which is the blue wrap. That's a little bit different in construction from the premium. But those are the three products that they offer, or excuse me, the two products that they offer. The work that we did in the development of this standard was really focused on the product, the premium product, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. TAMA provided some protection to the industry through their patents, essentially, helping to kind of block some of the use of some of the poor performing wrap products as they still had the IP protection on those products until that 2023 timeframe expired. And so the main goal of the development of this standard was really to help provide a baseline of expected performance that the industry was comfortable with for new products that were to be coming onto the market. And we've seen the effects of some of these already. Many of these images, some of you may be familiar with already, but there's been numerous cases over the years where poor performing wrap has caused lots of problems both in the field and at the gin yard when those modules are finally delivered. A lot of those problems stem from poor performing adhesive that's used to hold down the outer tail of the wrap material, but also just the general construction of those wrap products is somewhat inferior to the standard that the U.S. industry wants to see. So as I mentioned, our main objective here in developing this standard was to really define that baseline level of minimum performance for new products, new wrap products entering the market. There was an existing ASABE standard that was developed for module tarp materials, and that was sponsored by the machinery systems group within ASABE, specifically the Cotton Engineering Committee. And so this standard that we're talking about today is actually a revision to that prior standard that now encompasses module cover material for round or cylindrical modules. The other thing I wanted to note here is that a new requirement in this standard for round modules is the use of the ASABE S647 seed cotton module identification system. This is a standard that defines the use and implementation of RFID tags in module wrap materials, specifying the numbering format as well as how they're to be placed on the wrap portions. Okay, so currently we have this standard passed and it's in effect as of Valentine's Day of 2022. We're currently just about to wrap up the first round of revision on this standard. That it goes through standard periodic reviews over time just to make sure that everything is up to snuff with the standard. So we're going through that first round now. There is one level of certification with this standard. Basically, you either meet it or you don't. All of the research that was done to develop the laboratory testing thresholds that we'll talk about in a second were developed based on laboratory testing of the TAMA wrap premium products. And so the lab testing portion of this requires a manufacturer to put together a set of samples from at least 5 rolls that are unique in terms of their production lot or production year, and submit those samples to a third-party testing lab where they undergo 5 different ASTM testing methods for determining the basic material strength for that material that's going to go into that wrap product. And so there we're looking at things like tensile strength, elongation, the thickness of the plastic film, tear propagation is a trouser tear testing method that evaluates how easy it is to tear that material. Puncture propagation is another test where they use a laboratory device to puncture and then drag down that puncture and see how resistant it is to tearing based on a puncture. And then the pendulum impact gives us some indication of how tough that material is at resisting impacts. So thinking about things like puncturing that wrap from stalks or rocks or whatever it may be that plastic interacts with in the field or during storage. When they sample the material for these testing methods, they are selecting multi-layer combinations that represent the weakest material combination that exists on the module as it's built in the field. And so, for example, for the TAMA wrap premium material, this would be a material combination made up of 1 layer of tacky material on top of 2 layers of non-tacky material. That was determined to be the weakest 3-layer combination that exists on the modules in the wild, if you will. Moving on, the thresholds for these laboratory testing methods are shown here in this table. One thing to note here is that this data that we've used to develop these thresholds was really developed over about a 3-year time period where we ran about 6 rounds of testing on various wraps that we submitted to this third-party testing lab that did the actual testing for us. And so looking at all that data over the years, we came up with these thresholds. And I'm not going to go into each one in particular. We can do that if we need to later on. But the thing I wanted to point out here is that just like in any engineering standard, you set up basically a baseline threshold level and then provide some level of variance off of that to allow materials to meet the threshold, even though you would expect a normal, a usual amount of natural variability just because of the material. And so the way that we did that was by defining these group and single thresholds. So the group threshold is basically the average across all samples that were submitted, that would be submitted from a particular manufacturer for their product. So the average of everything. And then the single value that's listed there is basically the worst value that we would allow a single sample to exhibit during the testing process. So while in the group average, you may have values that are above that and sample average or sample values that are below that level. The single really defines kind of that bottom floor level that we would allow for any one of those samples to exhibit. Color is another important thing that we address in this standard. We have allowable colors that are specified through the standard, which are any color except for clear, white, tan, brown, or black. And then we also have a recommended color, which is the same color, Pantone 306C, which is the new bale bagging material color through the National Cotton Council Joint Cotton Bale Packaging Committee. Field testing is another aspect of meeting this standard. So once a manufacturer goes through and demonstrates compliance with the laboratory testing portion, they would then move into field testing, where they must wrap a minimum of 24 modules and store those modules in the field for a period of 6 months. And during that 6-month testing period, they're going through and at various time intervals, they're evaluating each one of those modules for different metrics to determine how well that material performs as an applied system on the module. Okay, so we're testing those wrap products in the intended use environment. So if a company comes with a product that's intended for use in both cold environments, similar to like what we have out here in the high plains of Texas during the harvesting and ginning season, then they're to test in this environment. Or if they're going to use that material in a more moderate or a hotter environment, then they would choose the corpus environment, which is included in the standard now. We're looking for things that may happen to that wrap based on UV exposure or exposure to other environmental conditions like wind and rain, snow, whatever it may encounter during the storage period. So what are we looking at there? Well, I mentioned the cover tail adhesive is a main pain point in this, in the use and proper operation of this wrap material. And so we have major and minor threshold values established for tail adhesive separation. Breaks in the cover material, that can be any separation or splitting of the plastic film layers. Adhesive slip is another big thing that we've seen over the years, where the tail sections will actually creep up as that adhesive breaks down over time due to temperature or UV exposure, whatever it may be. And so if they exceed a certain slip distance threshold, then they're docked for that. Any cover system failure to where you have an exposure around the circumference, exposure of seed cotton around the circumference of the module is also deemed a failure. And then the final thing to point out here is this module squat ratio is a big factor in the wrap's ability to maintain the cylindrical shape of that module so that those modules can be properly transported on chain bed truck module trucks. And so we've established a squat ratio, which is essentially the aspect ratio of the height to the width of the module, so that it doesn't squat too much and become too wide to actually be loaded onto those chain bed trucks. So this was a major industry wide effort to develop this standard. And there was lots of input from folks from Cotton Incorporated, as well as USDA, ARS. And we also had our main standard development committee that included folks from both Cotton Incorporated, National Cotton Council, USDA, Texas A&M, Clemson, and several other universities were represented. And John Deere, as well as TAMA, provided some technical input on the products and the way that they were evaluated and judged in the development of this standard. So this time, that's all I have. I will pass it over to Lauren for her portion.
Well, John, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Again, if you have questions for John, be sure to hit the Q&A link at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to those just as soon as we finish with Lauren's presentation. So now, Lauren is going to join us and share her information on product evaluation and the endorsement process.
Hopefully everyone can see that okay. Thank you very much, Jim, for having me on today, and good afternoon to everyone that has joined. Again, my name's Lauren Krogman, working for the National Cotton Council in Cordova, Tennessee, and have been working with John on helping to get this kicked off. So some of this will be a little bit of a review from what John went over, but again, on February 15th of 2022, the ASABE fully approved standard came out and was published. This again serves as a voluntary standard at this time for the industry to protect against any inferior products that could cause contamination and other issues. Again, the standard was developed using the TAMA premium wrap, which performed at a level appropriate or acceptable for the US. It also includes field trial requirements and laboratory testing, as John reviewed, over a certain amount of time. And with this standard, the NCC has become the depository for the names of the manufacturers who meet the minimum standards, which can be found on our website, and we also have the email below. So essentially all of the lab results and field testing results, once the manufacturers have completed their testing, get sent to the NCC offices where staff reviews these and then makes the final determination on whether or not that manufacturer has met the standards and whether they have passed or not. And then from there, we're able to post it onto our website and get the news out to all of the industry. Again, John went over this one, but just some more background on why the standard was created was because of the anticipated expiration of those patents that TAMA held on their round module wrap, and knowing that we were going to have more wrap coming into the marketplace and wanting that to be held to that higher standard. So to give everyone some of the policy background and how things were developed through the National Cotton Council with the industry, in 2020 in December, the first recommendation came from the Quality Task Force, which was made pertaining to round module wrap and support of the ASABE standard. The committee highlighted the importance of testing for the physical properties of wrap with all of the aspects that John reviewed, like tensile strength, abrasion resistance, puncture resistance, etc. Making sure that we addressed appropriate adhesion properties and that effectiveness over anticipated temperatures. We also wanted to make sure and address colors that were easily detected by the existing contamination technologies. So again, this is a very similar testing requirements to the JCI BPC bale packaging specifications, which set the requirements for the materials used to package our bales. Moving forward from that Quality Task Force recommendation, that went out to the Research and Education Committee in 2021 at annual meeting and was passed with the following language. And again, that policy supported the efforts of ASABE in the development of this standard. Going from there, once the standard was actually published and finalized, We had the Southeastern Cotton Ginners Association replace that policy language to continue to educate the industry on the importance of continuing and adopting that standard. At our most recent annual meeting, or 2023 annual meeting, we added language to look at using the round module wrap standard as an eligibility requirement for the loan. This effort has been ongoing within the quality task force, and many options have been presented to that task force and have actually been dismissed. So staff will continue to work towards options on enforcing this standard and moving away from some sort of voluntary compliance. So to give some more background on contamination numbers and why this is important as well, you can see these numbers from USDA over the last 3 crop years. The yellow line here represents the ratio between the total samples classed per each sample with plastic contamination. So on this, the higher number, the better. The more bales were classed between plastic calls. Overall, we've been steadily improving over the last 3 years, and I do hope to see this continue for 2024 crop. Here we have it broken down by classing office for the last 3 years. Macon, Rayville, Dumas, Memphis, Corpus, and Visalia have all seen improvement in 2023 compared to the prior years. The color of plastic is also logged for every sample found at the classing offices. In previous years, yellow and pink took up nearly the majority of what we were seeing. Now blue has hit nearly 21% and has overtaken the pink. Black typically comes from the mulch left in the fields after vegetable planting, and the other colors like green and purple, which represents other colors not listed, has also increased over the last year with the influx of new wrap products into the marketplace. So to give everyone an update on where we stand with current wrap usage, to my knowledge, we have 31 known wrap companies that are out in the marketplace selling wrap in the US. Out of those that we know, 11 originated in China, 2 in Brazil, 1 in Turkey, and 2 in Australia. While we were collecting all of this information, for any of those companies that had a public email address, we did send them letters from the council informing them and recommending that they try to follow and meet the ASABE standard. We're seeing prices ranging from $5.50 to $8.55 a roll, and that was at the beginning of this season. And again, John mentioned this one as well, but the 2 main issues that we've been seeing are RFID tag usage, where it may look like the sticker on the wrap is an RFID, but there's not actually a chip in the sticker, which is causing issues at the gins that do utilize RFID technologies. And then the other issue, again, being tail slippage or non-adhesion of that tail portion on the wrap, and that coming apart on the gin yard and potentially getting into the system and causing contamination. At this point, we have 1 company that is currently in field testing. We have 2 that are now in lab testing, and we have 3 fully approved wraps, which are the Tama Premium, the yellow and the pink. We have S&K, and we also have Sapphire Wrap, who partner with Langston, and they have all 3 met the ASABE standard. You can find these on our website under the quality section, and we will continue to update these as we get new folks added to our list. And then the other change I wanted to review today is the updates that we're making to the RFID standard that John talked about. So that current standard is based off of GS1, which is obsolete. And so what we've done is we've taken the highlighted portion of that 24-character string, which represents the general manager number within that RFID, And instead of that being assigned by GS1, we're now assigning it at the National Cotton Council. And for those companies that have reached out to us, whether they are approved or not approved, we are able to give them this portion of the number, and that can serve as whether or not the wrap is approved or not, the type of wrap, and the company identifier within those digits. So again, the council will be assigning these numbers as companies complete their approval processes. Ultimately, the advantage of this will be being able to see real time on the RFID whether or not a company is approved or not approved wrap, and then what the actual company is, because there have been some wraps that we've seen pictures of that don't have an identifying logo or any sort of branding, and we're not sure who they are. So this will help with that confusion as well. The ASABE standards for this standard are being rewritten. The updates have been made to that, and it's currently under voting right now and being reviewed, and we're hoping that'll be complete by the end of this year and published. And that is all I have for today.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it very much. I see we do have a couple questions in the queue here, so let's take a look and see what kind of questions. It looks like John, they both look like for you. Does the squat ratio requirement specify a maximum moisture for the test, noting that wet cotton will squat more?
So the standard does not address the moisture content of the cotton that's to be used under field testing conditions. So the answer to that would be no. I realize that the wetter the cotton is, the heavier it is, and the more it tends to squat. But I think the idea behind this was more that looking at the long-term changes in the wrap over that 6-month period. I guess our assumption in that was that they were going to use cotton that was of relatively adequate moisture for those modules to be under testing for at least 6 months. So,
okay. Another question for you, John, and I think it refers back to your 8th slide. Seen by visual, it looks like the quality of cotton is not accepted. How do you process it for value addition?
how do we process I guess I'm not following the question.
Basically saying by visual, it looks like the quality of cotton is not acceptable. How do you process it for value addition, or can it be processed for value addition?
Okay, so at this point, during during the field testing portion, the cotton is basically just wrapped in these modules. It's formed on a state-of-the-art harvester and then wrapped in cylindrical form. And then after that 6-month period, then they can take it to the gin where it's processed for, to separate the foreign material and then separate the fiber from the seed. That's really what creates the marketable product after the storage period. So, but through the standard, we do not address any quality concerns. The cotton doesn't have to be of a certain quality to go into these modules for field testing.
Okay, Lauren, the next one looks like it's coming down. It's for you to join or collaborate with you in this evaluation process with regards to the cotton fiber quality test. What are the conditions that a company would need to follow?
Well, again, they would need to reach out to us at the council using that email or reaching out directly to me. And we can initiate that process and we'll get them started with their laboratory testing with the lab that we have identified, or they can use any other third-party lab that has approvals. And from there, once the laboratory testing is complete, those results would be sent to the council. We would review those, and if they have been, if they meet the standard, we would then tell them to go ahead and start their field trial testing. That would again be a 6-month process, and then once we get the results back from that, it's very simple, and we just, have a few check boxes, make sure everything meets what it needs to, and then send out the approval notifications.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
I might add something to that, Jim. I think that brings up a good point that Lauren made there, that for companies who are interested in going through this certification process, it is it's a very valuable thing to contact Lauren and the National Cotton Council as you're preparing to uh, embark on this this task, because there's a few. The standard is written clearly, but there may be some nuances that you may not be picking up on, that over time we've gathered some of those things up in lists, and we can make sure that everybody's starting on the best foot, to go through this standard as through this certification process.
okay. Next question, asking what are the materials of the approved wraps? Are they polyethylene?
So all of the wrap products to date that I know of are LLDPE, so low linear low density polyethylene.
Okay. Next question. The original John Deere numbering, the RFID, incorporated a year and a line number as part of the serial number section of the ID. It had capacity for a lot of factories and crop over many years. So I find alternate wrap suppliers trying to just guess what serial numbers to use, but sometimes it conflicts with other suppliers. Is the National Cotton Council managing the serial number portion for uniqueness? Is that a question for other project group mentioned regarding the numbering standard? Lauren?
I'm going to defer to John to make sure I'm correct, but the only thing that we are, assigning a number for is that general manager portion, which is digits 3 through 9. Um, I don't think we addressed the serial number. Did we, John? Within
So,
that?
so no, the serial number is typically not the numbering standard that Lauren talked about, gives specific uh, details about what each of those digit ranges in that hexadecimal string that's returned from an RFID tag scan, what each of those strings are supposed to represent. And each of those segments has a specific intended use. The last portion of that hexadecimal string is extracted to provide that 11-digit serial number, which typically is led by the first 2 digits being the year of manufacture. And the remaining numbers in that 11-digit string, they are completely specified by the manufacturer in terms of where they're going to start their numbering sequence, but they are to be a unique number, certainly within that year of manufacture.
Okay. Next question, and Lauren, I think this is just for you. Could you give just a quick review of how many of the wraps have been tested at this point?
So, of course, we have the three, excuse me, the three that have been approved. So Tama, SNK, and the Langston wrap. And then again, we have one that's in field trial, so that has gone through the laboratory testing as well. And currently there's 2 more within lab testing, but I have not received their results yet. So in total, 6.
Okay. And one final question. Some of you could just both of you take a moment to provide your contact information. I've got some folks I think would like to get in touch with you for for other questions or collaboration. So John, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I guess contact, just probably the easiest would be through email, and I can certainly provide that to Jim to put in any publications there. But it's just my first name, John, period, 1 euro at usda.gov. I'll type that in.
Okay. And Lauren?
Mine is going to be L Krogman, Krogman, at cotton.org, and I will put mine in the chat box as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
One other note on that earlier question, Jim, regarding the uniqueness of the serial numbers, the ASABE standard that Lauren mentioned for seed cotton identification does specify that the serial number should be unique for a period of 10 years. Now, related to the manufacturers that are just guessing at what serial numbers to use, my assumption is that they are probably not using the standard. So it's still going to be the Wild West with those folks for a little while.
Okay. And it looks like another question. Lauren, have any suppliers failed the testing process?
No, not yet.
Good.
And I guess, and to expand on that, we don't want this to be a hindrance to someone getting into the industry and providing wrap that would meet the spec. So, we're willing to work with people. Again, John mentioned those averages and the minimums. Those are still needing to be met. But if we do have lab testing that comes back, we're happy to have retesting, that sort of thing with new samples. We just want to make sure that whatever we finalize is meeting that spec.
Okay. Another question, just checking. Has the Tama blue wrap been assessed?
No.
Yes. And
Oh,
it,
sorry, John.
I'm sorry. So it has been, and it is not an approved wrap product.
Okay. All right. That looks like it takes care of most of it. What looks like one more question popping in here. Someone asking the question, has there been any economic study done to show what cost producers will be willing to pay? Is there a cost benefit analysis on any of these products?
Not that I'm aware of. John, do you know of anything?
Not specifically related to differences in cost among the different wrap products, but there have been some estimates put together by Cotton Incorporated, I think, led one of the studies that estimated the combined cost to the U.S. industry from contamination over the years has been estimated in that 650 to 750 million dollars a year range, and that's industry wide since the implementation of these round module building pickers and strippers. And that's not all necessarily due to plastic contamination. There have been some changes and some other dynamics that have happened in the market, but a lot of that has come from the loss of premium from the increase in contamination, specifically related to module wrap.
All right. Any other questions from our participants? Asking, are there any penalties for producers that are using a non-approved wrap?
So other than increasing your chance of contamination, which of course would result in, penalties to your pricing on that bale, no, there is not any penalties due to not using approved wrap.
All right. Last call for questions. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. I want to thank John Wanura with USDA-ARS and Lauren Krogman with the National Cotton Council for for sharing their time and their expertise on this. We want thanks to Tama, the original premium cotton wrap for top quality American cotton, for their kind support of this webinar. I want to thank all the participants today for joining in, and certainly for the questions that hopefully we're able to answer those questions, and hopefully we provided some good information to you folks today too. Again, a recording of this webinar is going to be available online very soon at cottongrower.com. This is Jim Stedman. I'm editor of Cotton Grower. So thank you all for joining us today.